Well, so let me put it in these terms. It's very clear and I think really rather consistent the way in which the Trump administration has basically been pursuing what I would define as an imperial vision. Right. So this is about Western Hemisphere. This is about, countering civilizational erasure. This is about the kind of unbridled exercise of kind of raw power. And very clearly, Europe is on that colonial menu. Now, if Europeans react essentially vindicating that vision because they react not simply by flattering Donald Trump, but by self-humiliating themselves, then essentially they are acting as colonies, right? And this is what I mean by saying that they are vindicating precisely the vision that presumably they're trying to counter.
Okay, when you were at Oxford, you read Kissinger cover to cover, 912 pages, Diplomacy. I read it cover to cover. Diplomacy is like the normal world. Can we get back to the normal world, or has President Trump shattered our foreign affairs?
Well, I think that if by normal we mean the old world, the sooner we smell the coffee, the better it is. The old world has gone. The question is whether the new world has to necessarily be one in which it is only the survival of the fittest, only the law of the jungle, or whether perhaps indeed there will inevitably, and always has been and always will be, an exercise of power, but that exercise of power can somehow be constrained by laws and rules and institutions. Now, I think if we want to move closer to that second vision, we need to understand that the way in which laws and norms of institutions worked in the past, that is no longer available. So it's a kind of moment of reinvention. But, as I said, sooner we understand that we cannot save the dead corpse, the earlier and the better we're going to be at essentially redefining a new, which is not simply a law of the jungle.
I want to talk Greenland, Nathalie, because today is a big day. We've got crunch talks going on between J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, and I guess the folks in Greenland and Denmark. Trump is saying anything less than U.S. control of Greenland is, quote, unacceptable. How do you see this playing out?
Well, this is a really odd kind of, situation here, because Europeans, starting with the Danes themselves and the Greenlanders, are more than happy to talk substance. So does the United States want a greater security presence in Greenland? No problem. Does the United States want greater access to Greenland's natural resources? No problem. But if it is not substance, if it is simply a question of territorial expansion, then that's kind of a conversation killer, right? So I'm not trying to argue here that that dialogue is irrelevant, because I think it's relevant to exposing the imperial nature of this quest. But then the question becomes, how do Europeans react to this? And, there are different kind of options on the menu, right? In terms of, how do you keep your back straight? You can basically, Denmark could invite NATO troops, of course, including the US, but not only the US, from increasing their military presence in Greenland. Europeans could basically say, if the US were to make an aggressive move on Greenland, well, they would be actually welcome to leave other NATO countries too. Thanks very much. There could be contracts being cancelled.
Yeah, but the heart of the matter is, where's the backbone? Professor,
right, exactly.
Where is the backbone? I mean, Stubbs up in Finland has got a border with Russia. He doesn't need any backbone. He's living it in real time. Where is the backbone to tell a unique American foreign policy, hold on a minute, let's discuss this? I don't see it.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And the question, though, is where's the backbone? I think it's connected to do we actually acknowledge that the old world has gone? Because if what we're simply doing is buying time, hoping to save the old, we're not going to develop that backbone. If you actually look at Europe's material conditions, right, in many respects, actually, we are 30 of the richest countries in the world. We are, of course, dependent on the United States. But aren't Latin American countries in many respects even more dependent on the United States? And yet they have demonstrated, starting with Claudia Sheinbaum's Mexico's president, far greater backbone than Europeans. So I think there's this kind of mental switch that Europeans need to make even before we get to the kind of enabling material conditions to actually act.